Solo perché vi racconto questa storia non vuol dire che alla fine io sia viva. Questa è una di quelle storie. Ogni azienda di successo ha un grande passato alle spalle. Ben ha preso 2 lauree a Berkeley, in marketing e in botanica.
È la migliore erba del mondo.
Ben teneva il 99% della violenza fuori dagli affari. E l'altro 1%? A quello pensava John.
Ragazzi, il vostro è un lavoro pulito. Ma il cartello si sposta al nord. Vogliono un bene John Point nella corsia 3.
Vi amo, ragazzi.
Saremo noi 3 ora.
Eh sì, sto con tutti e 2.
Vogliamo lavorare con i vostri metodi e la vostra clientela.
A noi non interessa, niente di personale.
Temo che il nostro cliente prenderà la cosa molto sul personale.
Devono imparare il rispetto. Ho trovato il loro punto debole.
Oh mio Dio.
Sceglierei un accordo a una decapitazione.
Hanno la nostra ragazza e giuro che farò di tutto per riaverla.
Hai accoltellato un federale! Tu vieni a casa mia. Minacci le mie figlie. Non sai che qui è pieno di telecamere.
Dopo aver ammazzato te e le tue figlie, brucerò la casa.
Siete dei miei uomini morti?
Stanno venendo da me.
Fermo. C'è qualcosa che non va nella tua storia d'amore.
Se vedono che sei debole, dovrai ucciderli prima o poi.
Buongiorno, questa è la conferenza stampa del film Libero. Come sapete il film uscirà tra un mese, il 25 ottobre, in almeno 350 copie. Ovviamente c'è tempo poi per definire il numero totale, ma sicuramente sarà un'uscita molto importante per l'Universal. Io volevo partire con un paio di domande. Volevo chiedere a John Travolta e Salma Hayek che cosa vi attirava di questa sceneggiatura, di questo film molto insolito anche per la filmografia di un cineasta straordinario che ci ha abituato a così tanti cambiamenti con noi dello stampo. Che cosa vi attirava della sceneggiatura e dei vostri personaggi?
What attracted me was that it was the most original script I had read in years. It was very current. It felt very now. It felt like it reflected situations that were going on. Not only locally in Mexico, but politically, and I felt that it was fresh, no cliches and no nothing that. Everything I like to see in a movie is what this movie gave to me, and truthfully, I wanted to be part of. However, Oliver wanted me to be part of. I didn't really care. I just wanted to be part of the movie. And he gave me a very interesting character to play, more interesting than I even realized when I was offered it, because I think I had to discover the character by research and by investigation, and then each day layers appeared that I hadn't seen initially. But the initial impression was I loved the whole idea of this movie.
Yes, for me, I'm going to be honest. I was so excited to work with Oliver Stone. If it had been a tree that I was playing, I would have taken it. But when I got the script, I was so surprised that not only I got to work with Oliver Stone, but then on top of it, I had such a great character to play, and so it was unbelievable for me. I said, for sure it's going to be a nightmare, because it cannot be so many good looks, so many good things together. I'm sure when I get to work with him, he'll be a horrible monster and a beast, because like, it cannot be so many good things. And then on top of it, I got the surprise of how wonderful it was to be able to work with him. So this was such a great experience all around.
Ecco, invece Oliver Stone volevo chiederle, non sono molti film che lei ha tratto da libri, sono più film che lei ha scritto come materiale originale. C'è una differenza nell'approccio, nel lavorare sul materiale preesistente, oppure è sostanzialmente la stessa cosa per lei? Anche perché lei ha cambiato molto del libro rispetto al film.
Yes, I did, and I have to tell you, I enjoyed the process. I've done it before. I worked with the novelist Don Winslow and his writing partner Shane Salerno and they did not always agree with the changes, but the director rules in the movies, and the novelist often has to take. But we were happy, and we had some disagreements, but he came out and he supported the movie at the end. He was out there on American television, very nice. We had to make many cuts. The book is written in a postmodern shorthand. It has more than 150 scenes and many characters, many different voices. We did that business of making it into 20, 30 scenes, and we put it in the voiceover of Blake O, one person telling the story, and we changed a lot, including the endings, and the ending became 2 endings, which is fun. And John, I could say John's character underwent the most significant change, because if those of you who have read the book know that he committed suicide. He was a corrupt drug enforcement agent who killed himself. And I thought was the weakest character one of the weaker characters in the book. I think the script did him well, and we made him into a weasel, a big weasel, but he becomes even a bigger weasel as the movie goes. And as we find out at the end of the movie, he not only instigates all the action by selling out the children, the young people, but at the end of the movie, he's the master manipulator who makes the most amount of money, walks away with a smile, and takes down Salma too.
Bene, abbiamo una domanda qui, prego sempre di presentarvi.
Ah no, sono Salomone del quotidiano di Frosinone. Allora, signor Stone, io ho apprezzato molto dei filoni narrativi del film, come quello sui rapporti buoni e cattivi, che ognuno non è buono e non è cattivo fino in fondo, quello sulla famiglia. Tra l'altro anche stavo leggendo riferimento all'uso terapeutico della cannabis che viene fatto a un certo punto. Però la mia domanda era, che mi ha colpito una parte del film, quando la signora Hayek regna, chiede a Ro, ma il vostro popolo quando penserà ad un futuro? Quando comincerà a pensare al futuro? Voi tutti pensate che il popolo americano abbia un futuro?
Abbiamo una domanda lì, Emanuele.
Well, you asked a lot of different questions. No, I think the American people have to come to terms with the drug war. They haven't. It's been 42 years. It hasn't worked. America spent $1 trillion chasing the bad guys. And the bad guys have been thoroughly confused between drug dealers and terrorists. The confusion line grows. And the war in Colombia, the war in Mexico, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, there's just nothing but war. I live in a culture of war. So, is there a future in war? I don't think so. But some people in America disagree with me. As to the characters who get caught off in the war, I think Salma is a beautiful example of it, because she is a strict Catholic widow. Her husband was killed in the drug war. She's not a natural-born gangster, but she becomes one in the course of her life because she has to, in order to save her children from being killed, more children being killed. And she ultimately becomes very vulnerable in this war because she loses her standing by trying to protect her rich, spoiled daughter in the United States. And Benicio and a man called Azul sense the weakness and they go for her. They sense the blood like sharks. So she pays the price. no good end is in sight for this drug war.
Emanuele Castellini, prego.
Buongiorno, sono qua, però Oliver Stone. Buongiorno. Volevo chiederle, chi sono secondo lei oggi le belve? Potrebbero essere i politici, potrebbero essere i banchieri, l'alta finanza, e poi, visto anche per parte di madre francese, insomma, questo sua essere anche europeo, se c'è qualche film, insomma c'è qualche cosa della nostra cinematografia, in qualche maniera l'abbia influenzata. Le dà fastidio questa cosa? Credo che sbuffa. No.
Your European cinematography? Is that what you said?
Sì. No, la prima è quella che interessava più a me, e sono oggi le belve. Se sono i politici, secondo lei potrebbero essere, o anche l'alta finanza, non so, la sua risposta.
Right. Well, in the movie it's called Savages by Don Winslow, that's his title. And I think he's definitely referencing the 6 characters that we're studying in the movie, all of whom in some way or another become savage. Blake Lively, who's a beach bunny who thinks he can live very nicely with 2 boys, is by the end of the movie shooting Benicio del Toro in the groin with a pistol. She's crossed over. Aaron Johnson is a young man who's spiritual and he's a botanist, a scientist. He's growing marijuana as a healing herb to help people. It's very effective in medical relief and in pain. And he does good with the money in Asia and Africa, and he is forced to deal with the cartel, and it becomes a business, and as a result, O is kidnapped. He has to become a willing participant in a murder of a false herring. He kills Alex Demián Bichir. He burns a man to death, which O sees. So that this is a defeat of everything that these young people stood for. This is the savage in these good people. The savage in John. Perhaps he should talk about that himself. I love the way John plays off of every single person. He talks a certain way to his child. He talks a certain way to the young people, and he talks a certain way to Benicio when he comes to kill him. Everyone plays a moral game. Their morality stretches as far as their appetite allows them to. It's about survival. And you should talk about your own character.
And regarding the cinematography, I actually thought that was an interesting question, because Oliver had noticed in the last 40 years that the cinematography had gotten very dark and almost where you don't see anyone anymore. And I loved this almost a throwback to older style of cinematography where the images are lighter and more colorful, Sergio Leone and so on and so forth. So I was very excited about a look of a movie that seemed completely different with a dark story, but with a light visual. I felt that, like in the yin-yang way, it balanced this movie so beautifully. And it was refreshing. I actually like seeing people again, seeing scenery again, you know.
And and Salma's blue dresses.
No, I think that we are living in really hard times, and that we need to change, and that if you don't think in the things that you do in terms of a community, in terms of what is good for a community, you only think about everything you do in terms of your own benefit. We are becoming savages in that term, and I think we're living in times where we can no longer think like that, and we have to think more in terms of what's good for your community instead of just your own benefits and survival.
And war has always been money-based, in my opinion. It's been something that is tragic and unnecessary. And one day it has to stop. I don't see it stopping, and that's the saddest part. But I also wonder sometimes when we get into economic despair that war becomes the solution for economics or something, and that's very too bad. You know.
Bene, abbiamo una domanda lì, poi 2 domande qui, poi continuiamo il giro. Prego. Chi ha fatto domanda lì? Posso la mano, per favore? Grazie.
Alan Bauman per l'ideale, una domanda a John Travolta, se possibile. Nella sua carriera ha interpretato ovviamente diversi ruoli, anche molto diversi uno dall'altro. Ce n'è per caso uno più che le mancano, uno più ruoli che le mancano e che magari amerebbe riproporre in seguito? Grazie.
Well, it's a good question. But there's a line in a Tennessee Williams play and movie prose that he says, the character says, I have always depended on the kindness of strangers, and I have always depended on the imagination of writers, because I could never come up with the variety of roles that directors and writers have come up for me. I love becoming someone's muse, but to be honest, I don't think I could have come up with half the ideas that these brilliant minds have come up with for me to play. And I decided one day that it was just my job to become characters for these brilliant minds. You know, even with this movie, at first I looked at the part and I said, I don't know, you know, I don't know what's here. And then as I investigated the layers of possibilities and I met with the real man that does this kind of job, and when I heard more about Oliver's vision, then suddenly I could build the character and it could come to life and I'd become Oliver's muse. And that's what I love doing, you know. There's nothing like it. And it's equally as creative as coming up with your own ideas, but I find it much more adventurous for some reason.
Buona prima fila, Toro. E poi dietro ho voltato l'ufficio.
Per questa culturista volevo lasciare una domanda al collega per John Travolta. Volevo chiederle, lei ha citato scrittori brillanti eccetera, però è un periodo in cui fanno soltanto sequel e remake, se nella loro follia gli scrittori e produttori le hanno mai proposto di riprendere il ruolo di Tolmanero, come immagina lei Tolmanero oggi? Ha messo su famiglia, ha conquistato il mondo oppure sta ancora lottando per trovare un equilibrio? Grazie.
X Factor.
Well, I'm not a big fan of sequels for the very simple reason that I love new ideas and I love new creations. I've done 2 or 3 in my life. One was Tony Manero, and I made him a Broadway performer, and that was fun because that's what I imagined he might do. But nowadays, I don't know. I mean, you know, he would be my age, maybe a little younger, and I really, again, I would leave it up to your imagination as a writer, because I don't really know what his fate was going to be. I know that he was a dreamer, and he wanted to be bigger than his community, this small town, and I know that he had talent as a dancer, and I know that he was challenging. He challenged people's thoughts, and he could call a spade. He could, if someone was bullshitting him, he could tell you that you're bullshit and all those interesting things. But I don't know really. You know, what do you think? What do you think he would be doing?
If you say he's a dreamer, maybe he made it.
Yeah, maybe he did. You know?
Yeah.
Roberto L'Ufficio.
Allora, sono qui. Per Salma Hayek, io so che Don Winslow è molto esperto quando ha scritto questo libro. Noi sappiamo che ci sta un continuo scambio di armi e droga fra gli Stati Uniti, un confine permeabile. Quindi la mia domanda a Salma è, ricollegandosi a quella di prima, com'è possibile letteralmente fermare questo ormai commercio che ormai è alla luce del sole? Noi europei lo vediamo un po' da lontano, però in America è molto vissuto. E invece per Hayek il fatto che lei rappresenta una donna al capo dell'atto che sembra un personaggio di fantasia, invece sappiamo che queste donne esistono, cioè non sono, cioè sono cose che basta leggere la cronaca eccetera e troviamo continui esempi. Quindi come vede, visto anche le sue origini, come si immagina queste donne come vivono realmente, quindi come ha potuto, se ha letto qualcosa al riguardo? Grazie.
Okay, so for the first part of the question, of course I am not qualified to find a solution for the drug problem in the world, you know. I don't know how to stop it. I know it's real. And, but like I said before, I think it's time for us to change as human beings. And one thing I hope that maybe this movie does, and it might have not been what he hoped, but what I hope is that maybe people, when they see this movie, they realize that maybe taking a drug is not just a moment for them to have a good time, that comes with certain responsibilities. That every time you buy one of these drugs, somebody died. Many people died. Somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's husband. For that to get to you. Somewhere along the line, there was blood. You are participating in the 50,000 deaths in the last few years in Mexico, under the torture that these people went to. So sometimes they tell me, oh, the film is too violent, I have to close my eyes. I have to close my eyes too. But how come some people are so bothered by the violence in the film, and yet they have not been bothered by the violence that is happening in real life? It doesn't cross your mind.
Very interesting.
So I don't have the solution to the drug war. I wish I was that smart. But I think we can all make a small contribution in taking responsibility of the things we do automatically as we were robots and we don't think about anything we do. Like what he said, somebody asked, do you think in your future? We don't even think in our present. We just do. It's true. And for the second part of the question, there is women that have been involved in cartels, and one thing that was very helpful is our director gave us access to amazing research, not only on paper but actually to talking to many different people that were at different levels. And one of the people that I have also met in my life, some because I'm Mexican and there's no way you don't meet them, you know, if you're Mexican. But there was somebody that he gave me access to that had worked for a woman whose husband was the head of a cartel. He was put in jail and she took over for that time. He helped me a lot because he explained to me that they were very different than the men. They were all about the business. They did not have the macho ego. It was all about the business. So somebody insulted her in some way, did something wrong from the other cartels, and she did not go and create a war. She said, it's not good for the business, I will continue. When the husband got out, he said, why didn't you do something about it? We gotta go kill them. And the husband got killed. So what this woman did is took the money and got out of the business, and we don't even know her name. So they're actually colder and smarter, and they're more than you think, they're just not as flashy.
C'era una parte dell'Oliver Stone, ho detto o sbaglio?
Vabbè, ha risposto.
Allora, abbiamo una domanda dai blogger lì e poi Fulvia Carrara della Stampa, che però non so dove si chiama, all'in fondo, ecco, sì, mi sembrava da quella parte, lì non ti questa parte.
Sì, una domanda dai fan della pagina di Facebook. Una per Oliver Stone, se c'è qualcosa del cinema italiano che l'ha ispirato in questo film, e per John Travolta se è la prima volta che lavora con Oliver Stone e che emozione è stata la tua esperienza. Grazie.
No, I cannot think of an Italian movie, and I saw Gomorrah a few years ago. This was a highly focused, you know, Don Winslow has written about the drug war, and his Power of the Dog is a factual, fictionalized account of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s drug war with Colombia and Mexico and all that. Wonderfully done. But this is more of a fantasy. It's a hypothetical possibility. This is concentrated, 6 characters. I don't see the influence of an Italian film.
I loved working with Oliver. I found him challenging in the best way because he takes responsibility for all the departments of the movie, including the actors, where someone said that he gives you research that's this high, and then he expects you to do your homework. He expects you to investigate your character, to build your character, and deliver a performance when you arrive on the set that is A+, and he'll accept nothing less. And I love that, because that's why we do this. And and he's cute.
Bene, Fulvia, prego. Fulvia Catarla Stampa, adesso arriva il microfono, poi il microfono andrà fino a lì, poi qui e poi di nuovo lì. Prego.
Dunque, 2 domande per Oliver Stone. La prima, tornando un attimo indietro all'inizio appunto della conferenza, come diceva giustamente Marco, lui ama insomma passare da generi diversi e quindi appunto prove cinematografiche molto diverse. Volevo sapere esattamente che cosa lo aveva attratto di questo romanzo, di questo libro, cioè proprio il punto di partenza. E la seconda domanda era un suo giudizio sulle presidenziali in America, come vede la situazione per Obama.
What do I really like in the book? That was the first question.
Yes, what attracted you to this story?
Yeah, I think my answer is along the lines of what John said. I've never read a book like had this originality in the crime thriller genre. Never seen a movie like it. I love crime movies. I've never seen one like this. It had twists and turns, unpredictability, not one cliche. I mean that for me. And the first act was about the beach life, the homage to the plage, the beach blanket bingo, beautiful bodies, as John says, never have so many beautiful faces done such horrible things as in this movie. There's a sense of Southern California, which Don Winslow loves. The second act is Mexican noir, cartel, dungeons, torture. Another style, another form. Benicio and Salma give it a weight to darkness, and the New York Times critic called it daylight noir. And the third act was completely unconventional. It felt like stylistically, it felt like a modern cowboy movie with cars instead of horses and big vistas, burnt orange umbers in the sunset as the shootouts and the ambushes were occurring, using, by the way, weapons from Afghanistan and Iraq that had come home to roost in America and Mexico. So it was, and the concept of a Mexican cartel taking the brutality, beheadings and torture from the Iraq War very much is a modern idea, and I think the world has become a more brutal place. The other question was
about Obama. What do you think of the election?
Yes, I'm just finishing. I have a bigger picture in mind. I'm finishing the 10-part series called The Untold History of the United States, which is coming out in America on November 12th, in book form on October 30, and in England in Sky Atlantic early next year. So I'm looking, it's the biggest, the most difficult thing I've ever done. It's taken more or less 4 years, off and on. And it's a culmination of all the themes of my movies, done in a factual style with historians and with classic archive footage narrative. You'll see the Obama story is part of that. But I definitely think that it's not, the big picture is bigger than this election. If we go back with Mr. Romney, we will go back to the Bush era. But if we go with Mr. Obama, at least there's some hope of maybe some small change. I don't know how we can get out of the system we put ourselves in. I really don't.
Una domanda qui e poi 2 domande da dietro, prego.
Allora, questo video television, Oliver Stone, what is for you savages?
You asked me that already.
What is
savage? I'm sitting next to one here.
Okay, they're beautiful savages.
Well, you know, it's what hasn't been spoken about, which was part of the research that Oliver gave us, is the difference in mafias. I found that completely fascinating because I was always very familiar with the Italian mafia, whether it's the real, Sicilian style or New York style. But according to the research, the Mexican cartel has no limits on leverage, meaning, let's say there's a potential for Italian mafia to spare women and children, but in the Mexican mafia, there won't be any sparing of anyone. So there's less betrayal in that group because of the kinds of levels they go to. And it's one theory in this article that you've given me was that that's why there was less of the other kind of mafia happening, because it was too easy to reveal and kind of tell the truth about what was going on, versus in Mexico, if you told any truth, it's over in a very tragic way. And I thought that was interesting savagery in its own moral code. Interesting reading, anyway.
Selma, your Elena, so lovely, so bad.
What's the West?
Just that.
Yes, I was very, very bad.
And you enjoyed?
Did you enjoy it?
Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I enjoyed having a great part to play off of. I mean, it's people ask me, what do you enjoy more, comedy or drama, or being bad, being good? I enjoy the one part that is well written, and that you get to play with good actors and good directors, and that's highly enjoyable when you actually get an opportunity to do something with a part where you can give it dimensions, different things to it. For example, for this one, I had a lot of fun being different characters with different people. Like I was one kind of person with O and different with my daughter, and I was the very, very bad one with the people that worked for me. And then I was the spoiled brat with my servants, how I needed something and the tea and the so I loved it because in a little time I got to be a lot of things.
An immoral mother and a very Catholic mother with O.
Yeah.
Telling her there's something wrong with your love story, maybe.
But every single one of them was about loneliness. And I think it's what's heartbreaking about this character, as bad as it is that even the attention from the servants that she needs comes from her loneliness. The relationship with O, pretending, to be sort of motherly-like, but at the same time so desperate for a friend. And the opportunity, because there's another female presence. And with every single one, even with the horses that are her daughter horses, she is so lonely.
Due domande lì, una prego e un'altra.
Allora, per Oliver Stone, buongiorno. 3 premi Oscar, un percorso disseminato ovviamente da premi, da grandi riconoscenze. È passato da Senofonte, l'Anabasi, Alexander, a biografie storiche. Quindi un percorso dell'animo umano, della storia. Poi nella società americana nella borsa, quindi con grandi anche sempre riconoscimenti. Però forse rimane che qual è praticamente il segreto del suo lavoro? Cioè una curiosità imperante, una curiosità che lo continua a portare a dei progetti abbastanza ambiziosi che riesce anche a mettere, a renderlo, diciamo. Volevo sapere che cosa ci salverà a livello antropologico, a livello economico. Grazie.
But I never did Hairspray. Salma, and I wanted to work with her ever since a long time, but especially I just want to point out Frida. It was an amazing movie, and she did an amazing job in that movie, and also she produced that movie, and she suffered with it, and she's a fighter. As to my own career, my father pushed me in the direction of he told me, don't never tell the truth. You're going to get into trouble, and I guess that's what got me into trouble. But I tried to learn about life because I was born in a very important time in American history. It was the beginning of a new age, and I didn't know what was going on. I was educated in the usual conformist way. I believed everything for many years, and I learned, and that's what life is about, experiencing, raising your consciousness. That takes a long time. And I think I've understood more, and I'm trying to share that with my audience by book, by documentary, and by film. And it's very hard. It's a long journey. And this new documentary, this 10-hour, is really a major culmination for me. I hope it's well received. I will go on, and I'm fascinated by learning things. Thank you.
Prego. Buongiorno, Claudio Fontanini, domanda per Oliver Stone. La resa dei conti finali al vecchio cimitero indiano è un chiaro omaggio al western, come ha detto lei. Volevo sapere se lei aveva un tipo particolare di fascinazione per questo genere e se gli era mai venuto in mente di girarne uno, visto che molti suoi film della sua filmografia possono rimandare a questo genere. Grazie.
Oh yes, I love westerns, and they always revolve around moral choices. And I thought, you know, this mesa in the middle of nowhere with six characters, very stark, and then the snipers are far away, you know, it's a mile away. We try to shoot it authentically, but every one of those characters is faced with a decision. When Salma turns around and asks Sean Taylor Kitsch, who's my rat? Which is her line of dialogue, who's my rat? She's making a very dangerous choice there. And when her daughter refuses to even talk to her after being freed by her, it's quite a shock to Salma. Salma's going through a rough afternoon, I'd say. And when she confronts Benicio, Benicio's got the drop on her, and Benicio seems to be attracted to her because he says to her something very obscene before he kills her. So there's a lot going on with all these characters, and I love the idea that it's a trick ending. It's not a trick ending, it's the romantic ending. It's the way Blake sees the story. However, the reality is that John Travolta is there. And that's a real, I mean, what Western ends like that, you know? I was thinking of Duel in the Sun, you know, Duel in the Sun is that very tragic shootout between Jennifer Jones and Gregory Peck. I certainly put music in, which was like Sergio Leone when they come up to the moment of shooting out, and I thought, of course, with Sam Peckinpah, these are wonderful movies, but I think it was original. I don't see it resembling a Leone film or Peckinpah.
It's a Western with helicopters.
But John gets it. John is, I love your face when John comes to arrest you. He said, what do you say, Elena? Yeah. What is the line?
That's because I believe in sequels.
Actually, you believe in sequels. We could do, Elena gets out of jail, she'll make a deal. John will make a deal.
Hello.
Everyone's alive at the end of the movie.
Yeah, we're going to compare this.
Yes.
That's probably what would happen.
So this is my Western. I may not be able to make one, but this is my attempt at one.
Hello, good morning. Question for Mr. Oliver Stone. Mi piacerebbe sapere, a proposito del lavoro che lei ha fatto con Benicio del Toro, che non è qui, e quindi chiedo a lei com'è andata, nel senso che è un ruolo sanguinario, sanguigno, difficile. Quanto ha creato lui, quanto ha creato Don Winslow e quanto ha creato lei? Grazie.
We had a lot of fun with Benicio. He is truly, he's an actor's actor, Salma and John both worked with him, and they know the attention to detail. I think she slapped the shit out of him on one take, and he just said harder, more. With John, he came to kill John, and in that scene, and John is eating the sandwich, and Benicio comes up with the idea of just taking the tomato out and eating the sandwich himself, which was very his own brilliance and his improvisation. But what John said to me, interestingly, he said, you know, the thing about Benicio is he made me work with his eyes. I had to beg him for my life. I had to really sell him, because if those eyes would tell me that he wasn't believing me.
Yeah, I had to convince him, and that's how true an actor he is. So I was, struggling for my life, every word that came out and every look, and he was watching me like a hawk. And when he was convinced, he let me live, and that's what rose the. That's great. A great day on the set when these kinds of things happen.
How about Benicio? I mean, this was not planned. She gives, Salma is raising shit with him. I mean, she's telling him some heavy stuff. And you will pay. And you will pay. And she slaps him. And who would have started to tremble like that? And who would have started to sweat and be nervous with her? That was very much Benicio, no?
Purtroppo il tempo a disposizione è scaduto, non vorrei ringraziare Oliver Stone, Salma Hayek, John Travolta e le Belve. Grazie.